Okay, we're live, and this is kind of a different vantage point. Hopefully, it is easier to hear us, see us. We'll start with introductions. I'm Josh. This is Tony. This is our friend Joe. This is my son Gideon. He is not a friend, but he is connected to me. And I'll open with prayer. This week's Torah reading is Exodus 30, verse 10.
11.
Oh, Exodus 30, verse 11. That's right. Verse 11 through 34. 35. Okay, is that the entirety of 34?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So Exodus 30, 11 through the chapter of 34. All right. I'll open in prayer. Yeshua, would you please help us to serve you first and foremost through doing this? Don't let this of your tongue. Let it be something that you inhabit and fill. I confess to you that I'm evil. I'm selfish. I am doubtful. I'm untrustworthy. I am mistrusting of you as well. And I ask that you would show yourself powerful. I ask that I would not wear a mask. I ask that you remove from me the leaven of insincerity and hypocrisy. And I just confess to you in my heart, in the busyness of this season, Yeshua, I've been harboring bitterness that just I don't know, for some reason it's easier to complain against brothers in my heart. I just confess to you that hypocrisy. I'm guilty of murder. And so I just ask Yeshua, you would cleanse me. Help me to love my brothers. Help me to take hold of your joy. Bless the people I live with. Bless the people in my church. Bless the people in my life. Help me to serve them. And give you thanks for their lives. Help me to be a slave and a servant. Help me to walk in Isaiah 52 through 53. Help me to walk the way you walk. And give us understanding of your Torah. And help us to approach it with humility. We want to know what it means. Teach us, Yeshua. And let this be a resource for other people that blesses them in Yeshua's name. Amen. Okay. All right. So let's start. We're on verse 11. So let's see, Tony. Why don't you read 11 through 16?
And Yahweh spoke to Moses, saying, when you take a census of the Israelites to count them, they will each give the ransom of his life for Yahweh when counting them. And a plague will not be among them when counting them. This they will give. Everyone who is counted, the half shekel, according to the sanctuary shekel, which is 20 gerahs per shekel. The half shekel is a contribution for Yahweh. Everyone who is counted from 20 years old and above will give the contribution of Yahweh. The rich will not give more, and the poor will not give less than the half shekel to give the contribution of Yahweh to make atonement for their lives. And you will take the atonement money from the Israelites and give it to the service of the tent of assembly, and it will be as a memorial for the Israelites before Yahweh to make atonement for your lives.
Okay. So, are there any questions about this passage before I try to break some of it down? We could start with questions, or we could, discuss. We could make observations that we are already aware of. Do you have any questions or observations about Exodus 30, verses 11 through 16, I think is what the one?
Well, I mean, I guess maybe a question. The shekel's got to be pretty easy to get your hands on, apparently.
Mm-hmm.
Because the poor people have to do it, and they just came out of slavery.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, you mean like it's got to be easy to get a hold of. You mean like it can't be overburdensome.
Right. It doesn't seem like it is because he's making them all. And this is only the people that he's counting, 20 years and up.
Yeah.
Also, the Egyptians gave them.
Yeah, they plundered them for sure.
A ton of gold before they left.
I guess I was thinking like not everybody got some, but apparently maybe everyone got some.
So. Yeah, I think silver is it's kesef. It's the word there for silver, money or silver. It seems readily available enough. If the poor are taken into account, they're able to make it.
Right.
So they're able to make and here's the interesting part. What is atonement to most people? atonement to most people is somehow God pours out wrath on an object, and by him pouring out wrath on the object, people are cleansed and they're able to stand in his presence, right? Just like there's a connection to wrath and absorbing wrath or something like this, okay? Not even turning away typically, it's the idea of absorbing wrath. And so people tend to think a sacrificial victim is required to make atonement. Is that true in this passage?
No.
Silver makes atonement. And they sit and lay down, be still. Or sit up.
Make atonement for your lives. That seems like vague.
Yeah, well, it's actually
Like the ability to be alive.
which verse are you looking at?
That last one.
So verse 16. Verse 16. ולקחתי הכסף הכיפורים מאת בני ישראל ונתת אותו על עבודת אוהל מועד והיה לבני ישראל לזיכרון לפני יהוה. Look up here, al nafshtechem. Yeah, no. Nafshtechem, their souls, your souls. It makes atonement for your souls, your life. So the word is soul or life. It makes atonement, and it's not for. That's what's so funny. Yeah, isn't it? The preposition there isn't for. You make atonement on your souls. Make atonement on your souls. Atonement covers. Atonement is the act of covering, which is why we use the preposition all or on. So in Hebrew, the way you say on is all.
But it's the contribution and not the. So the contribution makes atonement, or the telos of the contribution, the end of the contribution, which is for the sanctuary service, right? The service of the tent.
Yeah, the service of the tent. Well, the weird part here is
those are two distinct things.
Well, they're connecting it to the census.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to answer the question: why is it in verse 12 that taking a census requires a ransom? Which, by the way, the word for ransom, kofer, it's just a noun that sounds like atonement, a making of atonement. Ransom is the making of atonement, the thing that covers you. We actually have that. We have that idiom in English when if you're going to go into a building or something or some kind of event and you can't afford it, your friend might say, "Don't worry, I'll cover you. I'll give you what's lacking." So that you can make the event. It's a very similar concept here, except so they're not being excluded from an event or a club; they're being excluded from life. Count them; each will give his ransom of his life for Yahweh when counting them, and a plague will not be among them when counting them. This issue is so that is interesting. The lo yehiye b'hem negef beef code otam. The word for numbering them or counting them is visiting them. When visiting them. That is very strange. Yeah.
Wait.
So, Kitisa at Rosh B'nai Israel, Leaf Kudehem. That is so weird.
Just read 11 through 16.
God, to reckon to 10. Yeah, so this idea of census it's the same word for visit. It's funny. To take a census is the same word for visit, to show up, to muster, to appoint, to attend to number, to assign. This word is so the range is so wide for this word. And I guess that makes sense for who you can cause to be mustered, who you can cause to visit, who you could appoint for battle, I guess. And when you're numbering them, when you're visiting them, so that there won't be a plague, you take atonement for their life or a ransom for their life. And the word for ransom is the same verbal root, kaf peresh, which is where we get kiper to make atonement or kafar to cover. That's the word. They make a ransom for their soul. And then again in verse 16, it's not for their soul, so I shouldn't say that. They make atonement on their souls.
So that's the word for census. What about count? The counting in verse 12.
In verse 12, let's see here.
That's another verb regarding.
Nafsho Yahweh, beef kodatam. Yeah, I mean, there isn't. It's just in the middle of visiting them or appointing them or numbering them, mustering them, and the act of mustering them.
But that's so it's the same word than counting and
Mm-hmm.
census when you take accounting. Or,
Yeah. This process. Well, we know that David was not supposed to take a census,
Right.
so this is like a risky thing. I don't know what the threat is of the plague. I don't understand the threat of the plague and what would be the immediate cause of it in their mind. What's the association, other than the Torah will outlaw taking a census in particular instances, and so it just requires. Here's a way to look at it. Okay. It's likely that for them, I don't know the reasons. The reasons might be because the numbering of the sons of Israel itself is a holy piece of
He says
information.
it somewhere, right?
What?
So that you don't rely on your perspective.
Yeah, there's a forbidding. It might be similar to the idea: don't use the kevadim, don't use your kidneys. Don't use the kidneys of the animal when you sacrifice. Burn those up on the altar. Because ancient people would typically use the kidneys. Ancient people would typically use the information of the census, to their own kind of gain, their own kind of perverse gain.
When to go to war.
Sure, and to know when or to think about making treaties or all kinds of decisions. But it puts them in the driver's seat. Same thing with the kidneys. And so Yahweh wants to say he's in the driver's seat. And so when God wants to be in the driver's seat, he takes an action that's profane or base or normal, and then he makes it sacred, meaning it can only be performed in peculiar ways by the priesthood. And so it gets kicked out of the normal. It gets kicked from the realm of earth into the heavenly realm. And so for whatever reason, taking a census is a sacred act. So priests are the ones who do it. And it does make sense that they think anytime you deal with a sacred act where heaven and earth are joined, any kind of misappropriation of action or misstep or misapplication of steps results in a plague. Results in a plague breaking out of them being struck.
So maybe that's why David got hit.
Yeah.
He didn't pay the shepherd.
Or because he decided to take the
Oh, and
census.
he's not priest.
Yahweh said, take a census of the sons of Israel here.
Right.
So this is a divine command from Yahweh.
Well, what's interesting about this is there's a lot of pragmatic aspects to taking a census this way. People aren't going to be counted twice because no one wants to pay money constantly, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's a way of it like puts a what's it called? It's like the way that taxes put a drag on the economy.
Mm-hmm.
This is like a drag on constantly wanting to count people. This would hold back people's like, oh, well, you know what? We just take another census. Like if there were types of people who were like, well, maybe we should do a census every year. Maybe we should do a census every. And it's like, well, that's pretty expensive, and people get mad at you if you keep taking their money every time there's a census.
Yeah, I mean that's a anthropological angle. How does it deal with could it address this human tendency to bureaucratize or something? But reading verse 12, looking at the preposition for does occur. The preposition for occurs. So kofer naf show la Yahweh for Yahweh. It would actually seem that they're having to. This is what their Yahweh's payment, his cut, his due if they are to perform a census.
What does verse 12 say? Can you hear it?
And you shall give each man or each one
Give a ransom price.
Yeah, kofer nafsho, the ransom of his soul for Yahweh to Yahweh in the counting or in the visiting of them or the reckoning of them, the censusing, numbering of them. And not there will be in them plague in the counting of them. So there's a threat of plague breaking out because it's a sacred activity.
But it is you shall and not when you take.
It says whenever in the situation.
Is it a command that they have to count, or is he saying if you're going to count, this is what you got to do?
Mm-hmm. It does say it just when here it's key in the instance of it. So yeah. So in Hebrew it just says that, meaning or when you're doing it, the time of you're doing it.
So it's not really. It hasn't really said don't.
No, and he's not saying don't do it, but it also doesn't look like he's saying do it. Yeah.
Okay.
And it's funny because the first rationale for them having to make atonement in a census is actually when their numbers outnumber the Levites.
Yeah, it's whenever.
Right.
Counting the plague will not be only counting this will give everyone who's counted the half shekel for the century shekel, which is 20 gerahs per shekel. Half shekel is a contribution for Yahweh. Tavumah, a lifting up. Tavumah is a word, it's a type of offering. So the shekel is going to be incorporated in the sacred space. The money that's going to be taken is going to be used to make sacred objects or employed in a sacred way, not just payment for priests. Tavumah is, it could result in being a payment for the priest, but the tavumah is the thing that they lifted up, for example, when they give silver and gold and blue yarn and gems that's going to be incorporated in the sacred space. So it's called that. It says the half shekel is a tavumah.
It happens right before they give the. Right, it happens right before they give the instructions for like where this is placed in the reading, the instructions for the oil and the incense, which are all like costly, and you would imagine you have to go abroad for. It's not like everybody's just gonna be like, "Oh, you need 500 pounds of frankincense? Yeah, I have that in my back tent.
Is this
It's in my garage."
the word census? Is that the word rosh?
No, the Rosh's head. Which verse are you looking at?
12.
In verse 12, the word census, Rosh, B'nai Israel, Leaf Kudehim. It's the word pay kuf dalet. So pay kuf dalet. It's like pakad, to visit or to see. It occurs 3 times in the verse. So it doesn't mean the word census is made up in terms of our translation. It is literally to visit or muster. So it's actually verbs for mustering them. So you're going to lift up first the sons of Israel, or the head of, or at the first the sons of Israel. You'll lift up or offer in their mustering, which is censusing them, numbering them, and each man will give a ransom for his soul for Yahweh. In mustering them or visiting them again, that would be their counting them, is probably what yours says. And not there'll be a plague in counting them. Does it say counting them? When will a plague occur in the Septuagint? Because it'll say so. A plague doesn't occur when what? What's that verb there?
In the process of numbering.
Numbering, processing numbering. So they'll call it numbering.
Well, here's an interesting thing. The word for census in Greek is literally the word syllogism. So it's syllogismos, where we get the word syllogism from, and it just means computation, calculation, and end. Like 2 + 2 is 4.
Yeah.
Saying that entire thing is the syllogism.
Yeah. So it's the process of computation.
So saying 1 + 1 + 1 + 1 + 1 + 1. You know, Judah plus Reuben plus.
Sure.
Like.
Wow.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, that goes back to the linguistic difference you guys were talking about last week.
Oh, there's almost no mention of numbers whatsoever. Yeah. There is no mention of numbers. It's a process that describes, like you have to derive from the concrete amount that they're going to be numbering. This verb is used all over this. Yeah. This verb is used all over this this book, Exodus, and it doesn't mean numbering. The example is at the end of Genesis, if Joseph says, "Take my bones with you, because God will surely visit you." The word for visit is the same for take a census. Because again, you can take a verb and change its binyan, its conjugation, to mean to cause someone to visit. If you cause someone to visit, you're causing them to come to you. You're causing them to line up and come to you. You kind of, why are you doing that? You're appointing them in some kind of structure. So it's not. They don't even they're using a word for number.
So then, is the census like? Is that like everyone's required to show up to the tent?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like that would be the numbering there.
That would be where it would take place. It would take place. I'm almost certain it would take place.
Yeah, because you got to bring in the shekel.
Yeah.
What did you say the word that we said was numbering was for Hebrew?
Here it's being translated. It's the same word. The word for census is not a noun in Hebrew.
It's the same word for numbering.
Yes.
Because what they do in the Septuagint is they use the word episcope, which is totally strange. Because,
yeah, it is, to oversee.
Yeah, so like the way that it probably, I don't know, closer should probably be in the overseeing of them,
Yeah.
but the LES has it in the process of numbering.
Mhm.
But then, of course, you look it up, and they're like, it's an office as a church leader. It's an office as an overseer.
Yeah.
And you're like, well, why is this called a process? It's a noun. It's noun, dative, singular, feminine, which should be a very easy way to just say overseer.
Yeah.
In the overseeing of them.
Yeah. I mean, so it's
So it's the same word that's used in 1 Timothy 3:1. If anyone aspires to be an overseer, they aspire a good thing. Like, episkopos is the word for what they're translating as the process of numbering. So
That's
imagine if we took that to 1 Timothy and we said, if anyone aspires to be the process of numbering, they aspire a good thing.
which makes sense in that sense. In that sense, it's easy to see that elders are like shepherds. Because you're causing them to muster, you're calling them to yourself, you're calling them a central location, you're keeping tabs on them, you're numbering them.
Well, it would make sense that the verb of numbering is coterminous with the person doing the numbering, since they probably wouldn't have imagined a computer that could do numbering without person.
Sure.
I just think that's interesting that it's episcope for the word number.
And it's helpful here to understand that ransom, hofer, it's a noun form of the thing that will cover you. Okay. It is synonymous with atonement in verse 15. And no death happens. So the money, the silver, is the atonement. And no death occurs. There is no wrath. And there's no sacrificial victim. There's not even sin. So it's a brilliant example to demonstrate that people who say they have a biblical view of atonement, like, well, let's test it with Exodus 30, 11 through 16. Does your view of atonement explain what's going on in Exodus 30, 11 through 16? And if you have to move the goalposts or, equivocate or, like do any kind of deflection, I would just suggest go back to the drawing board and say, well, maybe I don't understand what atonement is and why does it work here? My definition of atonement is a clean substance being applied to inhabited clean space by an elect priest or a chosen minister, okay, something like this. And it works here. The priests are doing it. The money itself is the silver is the clean substance, and it's a terama. It's going to be applied to clean space. It will become property and part of the sanctum. That works for blood. That works for gold. That works for silver. That works for.
Why does the sanctuary need money?
Huh?
Why does the sanctuary need money?
Well, again, they don't have a word for money. It's kesef. It's silver. Are there any parts of the sanctuary that have silver?
Oh, wow. So
yeah. Very smart. So an example is going to be they're going to give gold in numbers because they screw up the way that they divide it. It's home that everybody gets a bunch of gold and it becomes incorporated in the sacred space as a memorial. Exactly. So the priests don't pocket it. It becomes an object. We don't know how.
Into a memorial.
Yeah, it does, but it doesn't. We don't know what the memorial is. It could have been an object. It could have been just okay. We'll apply it to this existing object and code it. We don't know what they did with it, but it had to stay in the sanctum. It didn't get pocketed. Now it's possible it could have been pocketed actually because the zechir, the memorial portion of the flower and the mincha goes to the priest. We call that the memorial portion. It's actually what the priest does pocket. So that's a possibility, but it is a terama, so it has to go into sacred space and become part of it. And it's still not that far of a stretch because at that point the priests are a part of this. We've already seen in this the last couple of weeks of Torah reading that the installed priests who are functioning are actually, they're like moving furniture. They're a part of the sanctum.
Well, in Acts 7:44, it says the tabernacle, the tent of witness, is what it says. And that same word for that, the tent of witness or the testimony to witness, is what's being used in Exodus 30. So it's saying that it's a witness, that it's like, how do I put it? Basically, it's saying that there's two places where it's translated as tent of witness, which is Acts 7:44 and Revelation 15:5. The word is used for you will place it into the tabernacle of testimony, is what they're calling it. And
It's also, and again, I'll actually add that it very well could be pocketed by people who have to it could be pocketed by priests in particular. But I would say that at this point they have to be functioning in the census. So if they are priests functioning in the census, then they are still part of the sanctum. Verse 16 gives a little bit more clarity if you look at it. Avodat ohel is the work, the actual work. So avad is to work. It's the work associated with the sanctuary, the tent of meeting. And they themselves are like they're doing the work. That the work, it could be payment for them to pass under the hand of sacred space in a way. Okay, so we don't know what the money's going to do. It's possible that actually it does get pocketed because it's set there. But I would say if it's pocketed, it would be limited to those priests that are functioning within the census itself. Okay. Any other? I mean, just again, always beat on that drum that atonement is made with silver, no wrath, no anger. And another way to say atonement more simply is atonement is a beautiful thing being put in Yahweh's face to cover over an ugly thing that's yucky. And that's really different from the way that a lot of Christians understand atonement. They think of atonement as Yahweh is enraged, and he has to pour the rage out on something. And so we do a sleight of hand like David Copperfield, and we say, pour your rage out on this animal that did nothing, and then he vents it and destroys it. Maybe like Hades exploding in which cartoon Hercules, and then he's done. Okay. So where are we at? Verse 17. Okay, let's hear it.
I can just go to 21.
Okay.
And Yahweh spoke to Moses, saying, and you will make a basin of bronze and its bronze stand for washing. And you will put it between the tent of assembly and the altar, and you will put water there. And Aaron and his sons will wash their hands and their feet with it.
Mm-hmm.
When they come to the tent of assembly, they will wash with water so that they do not die. But when they approach the altar to serve by turning to smoke an offering made by fire to Yahweh, and they will wash their hands and their feet so that they do not die. And it will be a lasting rule for them, to him and to his offspring throughout their generations.
Okay, let's wait. So we're at 21. This is a really cool portion. There are a lot of ideas that we could.
So altar and tent.
Yep.
So you have the gate, altar, wash basin, tent, entrance.
Yes, and this is the bronze altar that's being discussed.
Bronze.
Yeah.
That's the one outside. And a bronze basin.
Yes, because it's outside. Yeah.
Bronze. Wait. Okay. What's the
Does it have to be
Nakash is bronze, right?
It's the idea, which is why we said that before. It's actually kind of a hint that the Nachash, the creature, or the Elohim in Genesis 3 is actually not as big of a deal as people make him. So you do have an idea that within some angelology, demonology, that Hasatan is actually one of the most glorious and beautiful beings ever created, something like this, but that there's not supported basis for that in the Torah. The Torah seems to be intimating that it's actually this is a cosmic version of help me, my dude in number 16, my dude who is jealous. Korach. Yes, okay, so Korach. This is Korach. He's a heavens. This is a heavenly version of Korah. Korah is not a big deal.
Well, he's a step below. Aaron?
and yet not even allowed in.
Yeah. Okay. Sure.
So
Okay. So then,
he's a guardian. So Levites are guardians, and he's in Kohat. So Kohat, they get to carry the objects, and but they were covered when they carried it. So it's like being right at the entrance and not allowed to go in. That thing is the thing that is seeking underling led a rebellion, not the most beautiful thing ever created, and then gets jealous or something like this. You have these different ideas. So, but it's helpful. Bronze is still costly,
right.
okay, but it's not associated with the interior.
So there's no. So you're saying only bronze is outside? Bronze is for outside?
Yep, outside the tent. In the tent, you won't see. You might see some ones. I doubt it. I think
Couplings
you're
or
gonna see.
something.
Yeah,
The
but you're
bronze
gonna
is
see
for-
silver. A lot
The
of silver on
bronze is
the
for the
inside.
curtains.
On the
Yeah.
bronze is bronze for the curtains on the inner part. Courtyard.
Courtyard.
Yeah, bronze bases, bronze curtains, but I think inside silver.
Okay. So then, talking about Eden. How does that work? If bronze is the outside, and also by the tree of knowledge of good and evil. But in the center of the garden is the trees.
Yeah.
So if the tree of life
Sure.
was the
It
throne
doesn't
or
mean.
something
It
like
does
that.
not mean. It doesn't just mean bronze. It also means shiny. So it's a flavorful thing. Like the word can mean shining one, but this idea of shining is associated with bronze.
Shimmering or whatever.
Yeah. So it's not necessarily like bronze.
But would that
You
be
have
close to the entrance or something?
well, in Eden is more like a depiction of. Imagine if you opened the ark, and the ark itself was a space.
Oh.
That's kind of where. That's where they are. That's yeah. So the Eden is within the ark. Eden is within the ark in terms of the parallels, because you have a tree that buds,
Right.
that
Okay.
recognizes priesthood.
Okay, that's
Um,
interesting. But there wouldn't be any bronze in it.
Huh?
Then there wouldn't be any bronze in it.
There wouldn't be any bronze, but again, the word doesn't just mean bronze.
Gotcha.
I'm saying it's like a sewed reading and a wordplay.
Gotcha.
The idea that it's not. It lends to the idea that it's not some arch powerful, terrifying being that was just underneath or something like this.
Right.
But that it actually mirrors one of the most heinous. Well, I mean, look at it. I'm sorry, this is the way it works. That the one who's just at the cusp of authority, craving it and taking it. That's like halal. It's a lead.
Yeah.
One who's just at the cusp of authority and wanting it and taking it. That's like korah.
So that's
One who's just at the cusp of. It's a pattern over and over again. People want to. Yeah, they want to leave their domain. They're not satisfied with their domain, which is again behind all these sins. The core is coveting. They don't actually have it. They want a thing they don't have. But here's an interesting part. They do wash themselves with water so that they don't die. They have to wash their hands and their feet so that when they function, they're clean in the tent. And this is a mirroring of passing through water to get into heaven. You can't get into heaven unless you pass through that barrier.
Right.
And there's water that you go through. This should be, as a side note, this is a helpful interpretive mechanism for the book of John. One of the things that drives John forward is sacred issues regarding water.
Yeah.
And part of the reason that works so well for John is John seems to have the same age-old Hebraic view that there is a solid barrier and of the rakia, and above that solid barrier is this cosmic home of water that you pass through to get into the heavens. So here's another weird idea. The idea that Yeshua was baptized through death by going into Sheol is one concept. But the idea that he would pass through the heavens, and then that's the kind of baptism, him being enthroned would be associated with us being baptized. After him having passed through the waters. John talks about that. He'll talk about passing through the waters a lot. And actually it drives John's sections forward because he'll give these little nuggets about water. And it'll change the subject matter. It'll change the topic. But that's a too far afield. So they wash themselves in order that they don't die when they approach the altar to serve. Now here's their job. This helps you to understand that this thing is a tavnit. It's a pattern. One of the giveaways that this itself is not Yahweh's actual only shrine is that the offerings need to be turned into smoke. They need to be translated into smoke. Why?
They have to go up to him.
It goes up to the heavens. And so it's like
And then let us make them holy of holies, not the least of holy holies. Because the heavenly beings are over there.
yeah. But it's this idea of translation. It translates into it because they do understand through smoke and steam and whatever, seeing these kinds of things that becomes ephemeral. It's almost like saying you're translated into the form of the spirit, so it could be appropriately received in that overlapping realm. Okay. Huh? Yeah, it seems that way, bro. Yeah. A lot of peeps jumped on for a while.
Cool. The basin.
Okay, yeah, the basin. We were told about. So we were told about constructing the basin, which is pretty cool.
Okay, so if that signifies passing through water in order to enter the heavens, this is weird. Is it just that they'll die because they disobeyed, or is like that also saying like unless you like does that connecting more to the it wouldn't be possible to get to the heavens without passing through the water.
That's right.
So that's why you get killed. It's not like it's saying it mirrors like if it's a sketch that you have to wash.
Sure.
If it's a sketch that if you don't wash and you walk into that tent you die, the substance isn't like don't try to get into heaven without dying.
What do you mean? What are you asking?
I don't know.
Are you trying to say is it?
Like this whole thing is sketch, right? So they wash their feet and they enter the tent.
Yeah.
So also part of the sketch, if they don't wash their feet and enter the tent, they're gonna die. Is there a substance in which you don't pass through the water and get into heaven?
No, there's no way to get into heaven without passing through. Because for them, it's a physical barrier. Again, they don't think of this like they're not thinking of this like water's H2O. They don't have a material ontology. You're not breaking it down that way. They'll say functionally, if you try to break that function, you put yourself in danger. And the glory of heaven will overtake you or overtake your vanity. It's like the realm will eat you. It's a higher order realm. Another way to think about this again is go back to that metaphor that I used. Imagine if the world was turned upside down and gravity worked by holding us to the atmosphere and we had to go into the ocean, right? So we're like turned upside down. Okay? Now you're getting a picture of what they think about the heavens. Because if you ascend, if that's the word you ascend, you're going, the pressure is increasing, isn't it? As you get deeper into the ocean.
Yeah.
Right? Glory, literal heaviness. If you go into it inappropriately adorned, you get crushed.
Okay.
They're talking about water as a means and mechanism of being adorned appropriately. It's more about how to function appropriately. So that everything there they have to mirror the space. When they don't mirror the space, they die. Another way to say that is you have to have the fitting and appropriate equipment for the environment. Yeah.
Okay.
And again, when they're struck with death, we're not told that they'll immediately die or that they'll immediately be struck with death or something like this. Sometimes we're told that just like the king, like Uzziah, they die through leprosy. It's actually quite a common one.
Or like coronavirus.
Yeah, they die through some kind of virus or plague. Coronavirus, please. Or we might get flagged now. Don't say it. Don't say coronavirus. All right.
No, you can't get flagged for just saying it.
I don't know. You never know. All right.
All right. 22?
Yeah. And also the dangers they're approaching the altar. So remember, part of this picture that's interesting is they have to keep their hands and their feet washed even outside the tent because they're approaching the altar, which is supposed to.
They wash and then they get on the bronze altar?
Yeah, because they ascend the steps. They ascend steps to lay things out.
So you have in and up.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Interesting. Okay.
Mm-hmm. And the Israelites just watch.
So then would the altar be like the mountain?
Yes, you're ascending. This is why a burnt offering is literally the word for to ascend or take a step up. You level up. They ascend levels. That's why they wear mithnasim or pants to cover their junk, because they're going to ascend and they better not expose their nakedness on the altar. Most other people, they're dangling.
Why is that a thing?
What? Nakedness?
All right. So if Eden is the inside of the ark, they were naked in it.
Yes, they were. So this is reflective of the fall.
Oh, so you
Nakedness
can't
is
expose your
during- yeah.
nakedness. Is that because? Okay.
Yeah, this is reflective of the fall. Remember, in the fall, everybody just lived in the holiest of
Yeah, yeah,
places. So the fall does speak to a functional shift with the curse.
That's where you get that.
Yeah.
Okay. And Yahweh spoke to Moses, or this is about making anointing oil and incense.
Yep.
And Yahweh spoke to Moses, saying, "And take for yourself top quality balsam oils, 500 shekels of flowing myrrh, half as much, 250 shekels of fragrant cinnamon, and 250 shekels of fragrant reed, and 500 shekels of cassia, according to the sanctuary shekel, and a hin of olive oil. And you'll make it into holy anointing oil, a spice blend of fragrant ointment, the work of a perfumer. It will be holy anointing oil. And you will anoint with it the tent of assembly and the ark of the testimony, and the table and all its equipment, and the lampstand and its equipment, and the incense altar, and the altar of burnt offering and all its equipment, and the basin and its stand." So that's the basin they just built outside. "And you will consecrate them, and they will be most holy things. Anyone who touches them will be holy."
Yeah, this is you're now translating them into another realm.
So what does it mean that anyone who touches them won't be holy?
Will be holy.
Like the goats that touch the mountain? No.
Yeah, I think that touches it becomes another way to say it becomes the property of sacred space. It becomes a property of the realm of heaven, so it can't be in the land of the living anymore.
It dies.
Yep. It doesn't belong to this realm anymore. So they actually translate. So by the pouring of the oil,
So the goats can go to heaven. All goats go to heaven too.
It's a good movie.
I'm learning the Torah.
All
Okay.
goats go to Oz, is it? What were you going to say?
And goats can serve as priests for Yahweh. And you will anoint Aaron and his sons, and you will consecrate them to serve as priests for you. So they get the ointment too, or the oil too.
They become holy. They are property of heaven. The priests are strange because they're the only object within sacred space that goes in and out of sacred space, except for the ark. The ark will go in and out of sacred space in times of war.
Right.
Yeah.
And they'll gear up and gear down every time they leave.
That is correct.
So how long are they? I mean, how long is he in there for?
Huh?
It's got to be in there for a long time. You can't sleep in there.
Watch this. What does verse 32 say?
You will speak to the Israelites, saying, "This will be my holy anointing oil throughout your generations. It will not be poured on human flesh, and with its measurements you will not make any like it. It is holy. It will be holy to you."
Okay, now stop. It is put on Aaron.
Oh, that seems
Weird. What
so
here?
he's not a human, or he's not human flesh.
So, when you said the Israelites just watch, aren't these Israelites too?
They are, but they're a different subclass of Israelites. They're the ones who get to ascend the altar.
So what do you mean when you said the Israelites just watch?
It's a figurative device to say the general Israelites, not the specific Israelites that's a priest. So, and it's a helpful distinctive. It's a helpful distinctive to say the Israelite versus the priest, because it helps the reader or the imaginer visualize, okay, there's a non-priest who's bringing the offering. You could just as well call them the offerer in that instance, but not necessarily, because priests can also bring offerings. And they can bring offerings for themselves. So they technically, priests could officiate their own offering.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. That's possible.
Is that okay?
Possible. Yeah. And maybe they will. We're not told that in that instance. We are told that they can bring offerings for themselves. Yeah.
Okay, so if he's back to this, what is he if he isn't? If it doesn't count, he doesn't count as it being poured on human flesh. Being what? Aaron and his sons don't count.
He is something else. He's not a mere man.
Heaven human flesh.
Yeah, he's not a mere man. He's like a heavenly man. or a man that belongs to
So
heaven.
Moses wasn't.
Huh?
Moses was a heavenly man.
Well, it doesn't say Moses.
It's not talking about Moses. It's talking about the priests being anointed with this.
Moses'
Moshe,
face do shine.
yeah, Moshe does not. Or Moshe doesn't receive this. He doesn't get anointed with this oil.
Does he wear these robes?
Moshe just
Whoa.
wears whatever he wants. We don't. There's no stick. There's no, yeah, and it's not even his. He had a stick that was a shepherd's staff, and now I don't know if it's still a serpent or what it is. I don't know what happened to the shape of it. It's possible to read the story of the serpent later on as Moshe used his staff.
No way.
It's
The
possible.
stick, the
It's a possibility.
snake.
It is a possibility to read that. Yeah.
Oh,
It brings some weird
wow.
stuff to light in
That's
Isaiah 11.
interesting. Because I was just thinking that it's a snake. Yeah.
Okay, so they make it like a perfume, and you don't put it on a stranger. So that lets you know what they mean by human flesh as well. Sure, you to remember Alzar. Yeah, you don't.
It's also saying though the perfumer can't just be like, "Yo, you guys want the sanctuary perfume?" and sell it.
Oh no, you can't exactly. Even if you make it, so
I got the measurements. Right
if
here,
you
yo.
compound it or make it privately, you'll be killed.
Yeah. I kind of smell like Yahweh.
Which this is kind of like monopoly. It's just a complete monopoly on this formula. God holds the copyright forever.
Right. Okay.
Instead of being slapped with fees, you get killed.
Yeah. So anyone who compounds perfume like it. What is that word, stranger?
Strangers is a word. It's the one being strange.
So
The unknown.
it really is the one being English, not like the outsider or something like
Well,
this.
it means the one who is strange, the one who doesn't belong, the one who's not from
So
here.
that would be Gentile, foreigner, or whatever.
Israelites,
Israelite.
they can't receive this
Anything
oil.
not a priest
It's not exactly.
or high priest.
That's right. Well, no, please too. Aaron and his sons.
Yeah. Okay. So but the other factions of Levites, the other clans, don't get this oil.
They're not priests. Only Aaron and his sons are priests.
Oh.
All the other,
But they get to carry the equipment.
they can't even see the equipment. The priests have to cover it with manatee skins and
Right.
hide everything, and they cover the carry thing once the poles are put in place. So they get close to it, but
They can practically touch it.
but they can't see it. They don't get to,
can't
they don't get to use it. The priests actually use these instruments.
So all that. So them killing 2,000 people who made a golden calf gets them the ability to carry that stuff, which must be.
It seems that is the way that. So the way that the story is constructed in the Torah is yes, it helps to. It supports the ideas. This is why the Levites are set aside. This is why the Levites are set aside.
Man, I wonder if they didn't do that, who's going to carry all that stuff?
The first one.
Oh, really?
Mhm.
So they jumped ahead then.
What do you mean?
What do you mean the first one? You mean
No, so
first one of Aaron?
No, the first one of all Israelites were going to function as the. They weren't going to function as the priesthood, but they were going to function as the service of the tabernacle. So because the first
How
child,
do you know that?
because they have to be redeemed. The first thing that opens a mother's womb, an Israelite woman's womb, is holy to Yahweh, and they're handed over to him. Which this makes sense for why Samuel's offered to the temple complex.
Right.
In lieu of what the Levites did, the firstborn would have had to take up that role. And we know this because in the book of Numbers, hey babe, get out of there, Hannah. Sit down. We know this because when the Levites are numbered, they're about 200 or so less than all the firstborn males in Israel. Meaning there are 200 or so more firstborn males in Israel.
means.
Yeah, and so they have to take
So
over
they
their
gotta
job.
pay for.
They got to pay for the work that they end up having to do in their place. The Levites were taken instead of the firstborn.
And they got to pay to cover the gap.
Exactly. That and Kofar, cover what's missing.
They got to cover the spread that the
Yeah,
first one
you
would have
cover
been
what's
able to do.
missing.
Yeah, that's cool. Okay. Here you go.
Yep.
And Yahweh said to Moses, "Take for yourself fragrant perfumes, stactite resin, onycha, and galbanum, and fragrant perfumes and pure frankincense, an equal part of each, and make it into a compound of incense, the work of a perfumer, salted, pure, and holy. And you will grind part of it to powder, and you will put part of it before the testimony in the tent of assembly, where I will meet with you. It will be a most holy thing to you. And the incense that you will make with its measurements, you will not make for yourselves. It will be holy to you for Yahweh. Anyone who makes any like it to smell it will be cut off from his people.
Salted. Yeah.
So same thing with the incense.
That you said kill.
Cut off from the people might be
They'll be cut off from the land of the
land of the
living.
living, yeah.
With the people. So also it has to be salted. This is
Salted.
all sacrifices, all things that end up being that are organic. Basically, all organic things that are brought into sacred space as an offering is supposed to remain in sacred space, which would exclude priests, but include yeast or include dough, animals, elements from trees, and so this kind of thing. You introduce salt. It must not be lacking. Part of the reason is because this is heaven is the realm of life. Nothing should die. So any source of death should be worked against. Salt becomes this agent. Because in ancient times, on refrigerators, so it's a preserving agent, preserves life.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they rub everything down with oil.
Yeah.
And then they take the incense. So the incense part they're gonna light it on fire, and then you will grind part of it down to powder.
Yeah.
And you will put part of it before the testimony in the tent of assembly.
Yeah.
Where I'll meet you. So in the Holy of Holies.
The altar of incense in front of the curtain, because this is where that's going to burn.
So sorry. Curtain, Holy of Holies is back there. They're only going in there once a year.
Yeah. The altar of incense is in front of the curtain.
So okay.
That's where they burn it. They burn the incense there.
So the veil and incense in between you and
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
And when they go in, they fill up the Holy of Holies with incense.
Oh yeah. When that one time he goes in the Holy of Holies, he actually he makes it so thick that he can't see. And he wears bells on his feet.
Okay. The motive. The motive.
If you want to read elongates, we're on Exodus 30, verse 37. On Exodus chapter 30, verse 37. If you want to read along. You don't have to do it.
And the incense that you'll make with its measurements, you will not make for yourselves. It will be holy to you for Yahweh. Anyone who makes any like it to smell it will be cut off from his people.
That's pretty clear.
So,
To smell it. I love that.
Because he has to put in specifically, you're making it to smell it. So they can make it and not smell it.
Yeah.
That's like how clear you have, how specific you have to be with it.
It's funny. That's weird. In Hebrew, it's lahariach ba, to be spacious in her. That's how you say to smell it. It's a feminine noun. And the word they're using is to be spacious. Sorry,
Figure it out.
Sorry, no. It's not to be spacious. I'm sorry. It's not really, okay. It's riach, not, there's a word to be wide. It's not it. To smell, to scent, to perceive,
Okay.
to accept. Okay, metaphorically, I feel like.
That's close.
Yeah, sorry. To smell her. Yeah.
Got it.
It's a feminine, the incense. Okay. Now so we could wrap it up here and talk about Bates oil next time.
Okay.
And let's try to we can do a little bit more prep work for the items. I think it's really cool to talk about the Judean Bates oil and make
Son of
it.
Hur.
Yeah, son of Hur.
And Hur was one of the guys who wrote a military.
Exactly right. And there is tradition, not in the Torah, but it's interesting to see that tradition. There's tradition that Hur tried to stand up against the Israelites when they went into the calf and put him to death. So there's a faithful Judean who stands up for sacred space and tells the people what you're doing is
Even when they're in
idolatry.
prison. Oh, that might have.
They kill him, and the tradition says that because he was killed for standing up in faithfulness for my sanctuary, he will be the one to build a house for them to dwell because he built the tabernacle. So this is an idea. It also supports Davidic.
Yeah.
Which is
Yeah.
Judean descent. Yeah. So it's an interesting
Also
concept.
makes sense why Aaron gave up so easily.
And it also reveals the idea that how come later on there is this pairing of the Levitical tribe and the Judean tribe? When did that pairing start? We might be tempted to say, well, it started in the Davidic dynasty or something like this. But sorry, dynasty. It's not Duck Dynasty. But it actually started. You could see it here already. The idea that the ruling class is going to be associated with Savior's face. And you're going to see that in Numbers too. Because Judah gets to be on the favorite position near Aaron in terms of who's facing eastward or whatever. Okay, so quite a bit to cover. Do you want to close in prayer?
Yes. Yeshua, thank you for today. Thank you for today. Thank you for the reading that we did.
Yes.
Thank you for this detailed pattern. Thank you for instructing people about how to join heaven. Thank you for the deeper insight into how different a place it is. So thought of going into the ocean, the pressure, the different temperature, everything. It's a different space and a different properties there. Lord, to the degree that you're building this house now, this temple now, Lord, I pray that you give us more understanding of the substance. I pray that you give us a greater understanding of the sketch in order to pursue you in obedience, pursue you with whole hearts. Lord, I come before you a broken man, an evil man, Yeshua, selfish, impatient, only desiring the things that are pleasing to you now, currently, they have nothing to do with it. They have nothing to do with it. Forgive me, Yeshua. Restore me, Lord. Speak to me, Lord. I keep reaching out, longing to hear more from you, longing to be taught by you. And I don't just want to always come and request this knowledge and request knowledge, but I would rather have a time sitting with you and listening
Yes,
to you.
please, Yeshua. It's better to be present.
Just to have your presence in me, like, to talk about whatever. Thank you so much that you're committed to this pattern. As strange as it is to try to understand it now, like, you're making it, or you're causing it to make more sense to me, and I thank you for that. Lord. I pray that you do the same for your church. I pray that you do the same for this body. That we take seriously the things that have been revealed already. That we know how to walk in obedience in order to pursue, continue to zealously desire prophecy and pursue things that could be revealed to us. So please speak, Lord. Bless you, Lord. Bless these men, Lord. Help us to use this insight or speak to us and give us instruction for the body based upon things that we've read here. Lord. And prep us for next time. Help us set aside time in order to go through to make these sections that we can go through.
Yes.
And go ahead and already, Lord, you teach us things that we can share with others. And the rest of Betzalel and his father and the objects and the tools. Lord, thank you. Thank you for the time that we have together. Thank you for your grace. Thank you for being here you're described and defined as someone who is incredibly holy, incredibly, it's worthy to be feared, glorious, heavy, important, significant, and all those things where you have speak to us, to meet us where we are, and to bring many sons to that glory. Thank you for that, Bishop. Thank you for the inheritance that lies ahead of my brothers and sisters. And we won't be here too much longer before we get to meet you face to face. I pray your will would be done in our lives. Bless you, Yeshua. We ask all these things in the power of your name. So good.
Amen. Thank you, Yeshua. All right, bless you guys. Peace.